I think it's been pretty extensive, the impact. The motivation, I like to think, came out of a good place. I think it came out of an embrace of popular culture, democratic culture, and seeking to find new jobs after the collapse of industry, really. It was a new Labour signature policy. So in some ways, it was kind of, I call it a utopian impulse. I mean, it is everywhere, and that's the thing. You know, creativity, you can't really eradicate it. It's just harder to make uh, and sustain a career whilst doing so. It's more fragmented, I think. You know, we don't have a space, a kind of national space. In some ways, that's good. It's opened us up to the world, but also we're very fragmented and very niched. If that's a word. And it's also highly commercial at its top end. I say the top end. The tentacles reach down quite far, but it's changed from something we think of as a culture in common, which is, of course, is commercial in different ways, but it's changed from that into something that really has become hyper commercialized, and to make a living out of it as a professional, as a creative, is becoming increasingly more difficult. Yeah, well, that's the answer to that lies in what do you mean by a cost of living crisis? Because uh, it comes from, I would say, a kind of a major mismanagement of the economy. I would say, and at a global level. So we're still paying for the bailout that we gave in 2008, 2010. We're still paying for the austerity that actually reduced the cultural infrastructure and, of course, much else, social infrastructure, much else. And I think we finding it quite challenging to actually think about building anything or thinking about the future, given how much hand to mouth we all are. But at the same time, you know, the cost of living crisis is not driven by Vladimir Putin or any other excuse. The profit levels, as we all know now, have gone through the roof. You know, where are the people making a loss in terms of the commercial sector? So supermarkets, etc. So I don't like the idea that, oh, it's a cost of living crisis. Sorry, art and culture, you know, you're going to take it first. Actually, there's some really real problems with the premise of the question, if you like. I like to see it, and what I argue in the book is that it should be seen as part of the social system, along with social services and health and education and basic infrastructure. We should approach it in that way first. That doesn't mean it's all state funded, and certainly not all state run, but we should see it as that uh, something that everybody should be allowed to participate in and have the resources to do so. And by resources, I mean education, I mean access to it. And once you start thinking about that, culture as a human right, if you like, and cultural infrastructure as what is necessary to allow those rights to be exercised, then you can start thinking very differently about what culture is. Part of it is, and this is a hard one really, but part of it is changing the language. The it, it's now less so than it was a few years ago, but the desire to describe yourself as in terms of economic impact, or also in social and health impacts, and I don't knock that at all. I hope they do have social and health impacts, but describing them entirely within well-being or other forms of kind of social service tick boxes, really. Um, we've got to start thinking about the value of culture for its own sake, um, and that people should have the right to fully participate in it. And I think understanding that language and being confident in it is a really important first step. And not thinking that you're some kind of industrial sector in the making, ready to kind of turn around the economy, because it's not going to do that. I mean, all the statistics show otherwise. So we're starting to value culture as something that everybody should be able to share, really. First thing is most people don't quibble with my idea of creative industries. I think a lot of people feel very concerned about it. and what it's done. But mostly they see the dire state of culture. I mean, I'm in Bristol and in Nottingham last week, and the cuts, but everything, the cuts to the education, cuts to the local city councils. Both of them have had severe problems. The crumbling state of things, that how difficult it is to work in the sector. Kids, state school kids not even getting a look in these days. So there's this general sense of a crisis, certainly, but also a sense of how do we the language we use to describe that value of culture, and that it has been difficult over the last 20 years. So culture is not an industry. Reclaiming art and culture for the common good. It's out now, out with MUPay now. So I urge you to rush to a shop and get it.